Hey everyone, how are you? Hello, I'm Alex from Stinger. I appreciate you coming to our talk, and please, it's going to be very casual and informal, so keep rolling in as needed, and I'll take questions at the end. I'm going to be talking about the world of music, gaming, and NFTs today. And what I'll say is I packed a lot in here, maybe too much. So I'm going to take a big breath and then just start to crank through music rights, and then we'll move into the technology section. So who are we? We are Stinger. Stinger is the B2B arm of the music labels for gaming and the Metaverse. Our partners are the major music labels, Warner, Universal, Sony, who oversee just about 90% of the world's music administration, as well as the major indie labels, such as Believe and Merlin, who have, for size and scale, about 20,000 indie labels that roll underneath them. So an enormous breadth of content. And our mission at Stinger is to get music into as many games and experiences as we can across the Metaverse, helping them to move their metrics and just get good music out into the wild. So before I go on, the one really quick note on music. So a lot of this is going to be focused around KPIs, technology, and the exciting world of music rights management. But music is not a typical digital commodity. Yes, it can move metrics and KPIs. Yes, it can be a part of live ops. But like Ice Cube says, it offers something else entirely. It offers emotion. So it pairs a really interesting emotional component to the things that you're building. What we are working on today are talking through our two live offerings. We have radio, and then we have emotes, we call them stings, and we are launching a third offering towards the end of the year. For radio, this could mean 100 different things and 100 different executions. We can curate a list of music from our 20 million pre-cleared tracks based on genre, mood, era, even beats per minute, if you want to go into mood. The front end of that can take on 1,000 different permutations, and I'll walk you through a few of those today. We also do emotes, stings. And those are audio DLC. So for the gamers, you'll know what audio DLC is. For the non-gamers, think of it as a sonic version of a skin within a game. So it allows players or users to purchase a snippet of music, and they can overlay that onto an in-game event. So imagine winning a race in a racing game, and a piece of Post Malone's Goodbyes plays as you leave all of your friends in the dust. That is Sting. And then we're going to get to audio NFTs. Currently, we are partnering with Ripple to launch the first major audio NFTs at scale that involve content across the labels and clips that can be owned and traded outside of the context of a game or the environment that they're in. This is actually very complex, predominantly from a rights perspective, which I'll move into. So at the end, I'm happy to take any questions that you have, but what we're going to be doing right now is going through licensing, rights management, problems and solutions, and those are our problems and solutions, so I'm sure everybody here is going to have their own unique challenges. Audio NFTs themselves, I will take a break for the workflow section and let a more qualified engineer through a video speak more eloquently to that piece of it, and then we'll go into the crypto component, and then I'll show you a couple of examples. And at the end, happy to take any questions as well. So to start, we're going to cover the very exciting subjects of music rights as fast as we can, the basics of music licensing. So recorded music has multiple stewards who are overseeing the copyright structures. And I'll talk through just a few of the primary buckets right now. On the left-hand side, we'll say the labels. Labels are representatives of artists and bands. So they typically oversee the sound recording copyrights. On the other side of it, you have publishers. Publishers are the agents of the song composers themselves and administer song composition copyrights. These two can act independently from one another. In many instances, they have to be paired with one another, and the rights have to be paired to be able to get the end user experience that you want. Through both of these, they oversee one major component, which is royalties. How do the artists get paid? How do the writers get paid? Royalties are the payments that are made to compensate artists, composers, writers, and examples of royalties vary depending on the use case. One example would be mechanical. When you buy a CD, if anybody still buys CDs, that's a physical good, so that would fall under a mechanical royalty. A sync, which is a sync license. This goes back to the very first time a phonograph was paired with a black and white movie that was playing in the background. This is roughly the same structure that still exists. So if you are going to use a song inside of, say, a video game trailer or a commercial for your project, that's a sync license. And then lastly, I'll talk a little bit about performance, which covers public plays. So that's a really broad one. That can be a concert, a live concert. That can be a radio station. Performance rights are broad by design. I'll move into the parallel world of rights management, which comes a little bit down the waterfall from what we just discussed. And again, there are three main buckets to cover. So the first is the rights administrator. These are the companies that handle the actual tech and the lifting of the rights management. Reporting, royalty payments. They are the back end that power organizations like big digital radio services, like the Spotifys of the world and the Trillers of the world. Similarly, there's the performing rights organizations who are more on the administration on a by-country level. So there are, think of PROs as regional micro-publishing societies. They monitor rights and royalties within their specific countries. So England, France, even here in the US. Each of these countries has their own performing rights societies that you will need to work with for most of the use cases to be able to allow music to be used inside of those countries in a digital way. And then even more broadly is, is tech. And that's like us. We're a tech company, right? We ingest the music and we bring it to consumers so they can lead happy lives and listen to the stuff they want. My last note on music rights is going to be around reporting, and then after this, I promise I'll get into the more technical stuff. I've heard music reporting described as a riddle in a box. It is wildly challenging, and there's not a lot of transparency around it. It is doable. There's infrastructure in place that can help. Things to be mindful of for projects that you are working on that want to incorporate recorded music is geographies. You'll have to report against each territory uniquely. And that is for the performing rights societies, the PROs that we mentioned on the last slide. Financial and usage reporting, you'll need to make unique reports for each label and each publisher. And that reporting is, let's call it 90% normalized, 10% not normalized. So just be prepared that there's a lot of this lifting that you'll need to do across the back end. And most songs have a mix of rights across multiple publishers. I would say genres that are sort of famous for this are hip hop and EDM, where you can have 10 writers on a particular song. All those writers could be potentially on different publishers and different labels. So all of that has to be mapped together on the back end to ensure that that you're doing something legally. On the left-hand side over here is an actual conversation I've overheard. And the point, you read it at your leisure, the point of this is to say that when reporting does happen, it very rarely makes it down to the artist level or to the composer level. It typically goes to labels and the publishers who use it to administer royalty payments out to the artists. I think there's a very unique opportunity for Web3 in particular to provide a direct path to artists to show them who bought their stuff and where, who's actually listening to their goods, who are their consumers, because this level, the level of data they get right now is very, very macro. So, on to the audio NFTs, because we are at a blockchain conference. There are some, seeing the structure that you've seen, that we've just outlined in a few minutes, and there's wildly more depth to it. There are some unique challenges around having immutable rights to music, as you can imagine, and global rights. So the rights are tricky. They need to be, first and foremost, for NFTs, global and non-revocable, which is unusual in the music world. Typically, you have the ability to recall songs at the artist's whim and at the label whim. It needs to be associated to a particular environment. And often, in our world at least, because we're predominantly working with games and Metaverse creators, meaning Metaverse environment creators, this isn't a stipulation of the labels. They're usually pretty agnostic where it goes and what it gets used across as long as it's licensed correctly. This is more from folks like game publishers, because I think a lot of games in the traditional Web 2 space are still wrapping their heads around interoperability. And then there are tech challenges. It's difficult from a technology perspective to put recorded music on the chain. But like everything, there's solutions, and we have some great partners that we're working with. So for rights, we are working with labels and publishers who own their master rights and can administer them globally and immutably. That's important. Make sure, if you are working on a project, that you have all the necessary rights, because you can go through all this work, create all this infrastructure, make a wonderful thing, and then have it taken down within 24 hours. And the takedown could be administered by a bot, by a DMCA compliance bot. So this is important. There is a way to structure NFTs so that they can contain audio, offer value, and be transactable in other environments, meaning they can be outside of just the environment that they're initially hosted in. And I'll go into this in a little bit with some use cases. And then on the next couple of slides, I'll tell you more of what we're doing specifically. So our audio NFTs are structured in a few primary parts. The visual asset, right? So there's the JPEGs of it all, the actual visual image for which there is a lot of existing infrastructure to trade NFTs today. That image is associated to the NFT and it's stored off-chain. There is the audio asset, which is the actual music file itself. This can take about a half a dozen different permutations. With the global rights against it, this is also stored off-chain. And this is for reasons of efficiency. And then there's the utility aspect. For us, this is very specific to Stinger, and this has two parts. So the emote itself, the actual in-game utility of using that file as an emote, and then the location. So what we're doing when we go to market and offer these audio NFTs is, let's say you want to have a snippet of music play over your avatar. You want to personalize your avatar experience. You want to have a little cut of Migos as you enter a particular room. Well, that has to be triggered by an event. That audio has to be triggered by an event. But if you have the NFT, you'll have more events than the average person will have. So you'll know that you have, when you walk inside of a club, not only will it play over your head, but when you sit down at a table, it can play as well. This is all designated by the developers. But I think the value here is driven by offering exclusive experiences and meaningful experiences in addition to those pieces of audio. So I'll do a really quick walkthrough of the workflow, and then I'll turn it over to my developer, Mario, who can speak to it much more eloquently. Creating the NFT. We create and cut the emote audio file from the labels, and then mint the NFT on XRPL. Purchasing. We then push the NFT emote into a game, either directly into their store or through our own and enabled stores that live inside across games that are initialized through a HUD button. Claiming. Once purchased, users can choose to exclusively use the NFT emote in their game or authenticate and transfer it to an external wallet. If you don't ever want to transfer this to an external wallet with our system, you don't have to. This is for the ultra casual consumer who's predominantly buying it for utility. But if you do, obviously that right is there for you. Reselling. Once the user has it in their own wallets, they can initiate a sale on any third-party markets that are compatible and supporting it. And then external. After the transfer is complete, our backend has to do the work to make sure, hey, you're the new person in this particular video game, you're the new owner, I'm gonna ensure that you have the unlock and you have the utility that we're offering against this particular NFT. So I will turn it over to one of our tech leads. He's in Europe today. So this is going to be a little bit of a virtual walkthrough, but let me turn this over to Mario. Ooh.
Hi, everybody. In the next 4 diagrams, I'll briefly explain how the NFT is minted, purchased, claimed on a user's wallet, and resold on a marketplace within the ecosystem around Stinger's platform. The stakeholders in the ecosystem on the left side are label companies. They provide audio content, XRPL, ledger that enables minting and trading of NFTs, games, interface where the actual sales of NFTs happening, storefront for NFTs, users, the ones which are in the game and buy and use the NFTs, and Stinger as a platform which provides end-to-end solution for enabling audio for games and their users. In this first diagram, the end goal is to mint the NFT on XRPL. It starts with Stinger admin, who goes on Stinger admin portal and drafts an NFT. From there, admin can trigger the process of minting, since the Stinger platform and XRPL are communicating through APIs. Once the minting process is successfully done on the ledger, the newly created NFT is on Stinger's custodial wallet. We get information back from the wallet to Stinger platform, so we have an updated inventory after the minting is successfully done. With the updated list of minted NFTs, the first process is done. In the second diagram, the end goal is that user buys NFT in the in-game marketplace. So the previous list of minted NFTs is now on in-game marketplace through built SDK and APIs. User views the available NFTs in-game and triggers purchase. Important note here, the purchase is made with in-game currency, so not with XRPs. After the user balance is validated, we connect user's ID and purchased NFT ID and send this information back to the game. After that, the user can view and use the NFT in his or her game. Please note that XRPL is not involved here, which means that the user can only use it in the game and does not have it in his or her wallet yet. In the third diagram, the end goal is that user claims the previously purchased NFT on his or her wallet. It starts with the user who triggers claiming in the game. Stinger receives the information about the user's claim and sends an email to the user to redirect him back to the Stinger's user portal. On that portal, user enters wallet information to continue with the claiming process. Now, the sell offer starts on the ledger. An important note here, the sell offer is 0 XRP because the user already paid with the in-game currency previously. And within 24 hours, the offer is accepted and the user sees the NFT on his or her wallet. In addition, Stinger's platform records the ownership change in the database and sends an email confirmation to that user. In the last diagram, the goal is that the previous user resells the NFT on a third-party marketplace. So, the user is on a marketplace and sells the NFT to another user. Transfer happens from seller's wallet to buyer's wallet. Stinger records the ownership change and communicates to the game to remove the NFT from the seller's inventory. On the blockchain, Stinger receives the revenue percentage as the NFT issuer and also records the revenue information to settle with third parties. At last, the buyer views the purchased NFT on the wallet. And once the buyer enters the game for which the NFT is related to, the user can use the NFT in the game. Let's briefly summarize when is the XRP used within the previously explained process. Firstly, when the issuer creates wallet, then every time the NFT is minted, every time sell and accept offer happens on a ledger, on a marketplace, when resell occurs for NFT, and at last, when the XRP is converted to USDC through the centralized exchange.
There we go, slowly. Okay, and then just one last, I won't go through the workflow again, but one last plug. This is for Chenny. So XLS 20, the standard is passed 80%. Very exciting news. I'm probably gonna be, every single person today is gonna be talking about this. This is great stuff. So let's get some fun NFTs out there. Let's get some good stuff out in the market. So just to kind of cap this off, and then we'll go into questions, it wouldn't be a very good Apex conference if we didn't chat about how XRPL fits into all of this. There's a lot of touch points, but also there's some really interesting partnerships that we have that are in place. So first I'll go into is we have some really wonderful folks who are here. The OnXRP team is here in the very first row. Also a plug, talk coming up later today. I will be there. And they're launching a really amazing game. It's called Maladroids, and it's a P2E competitive runner that is fun. This is a P2E game that's genuinely fun. And it has these amazing, cheeky little robots who are knocking one another over. You can wager, XRP against it. The press release will come out in just a couple of days, but we're watching a really fun experience together. And it's based around an EDM radio station that's curated by two big DJs, Kreider and Tom Starr. So they are friends IRL, and they are launching their first collaboration album, and we're gonna be putting it inside of this game, which is gonna be really, really fun. In addition to that, we have some other amazing music from the major labels. And it's gonna be a gaming first, it's gonna be good. I'll also go on to this project, which is gonna be really fun as well. And we actually have somebody here from Buaverse as well. Amazing, I can't wait to see this. This one is in the wings, and Justin Bua is an epic fine artist. If you're not already immediately familiar with the name, I can guarantee you've seen his work. And he's launching an arts-focused metaverse that's broken into multiple thematic boroughs, which is gonna be very, very exciting. Here's a very high-level outline of what those boroughs are gonna look like. The conceptual stuff is absolutely beautiful. So we're working together to launch a nightclub in the borough of Vinyl Heights, which just makes me happy every time I say it. And it's gonna feature a series of music and programming, independent artist activations, parties, as well as drop exclusive audio NFTs from the system. It's our little Stinger club. And that's it. I realized there was a lot of pauses in there. Thank you for bearing with me. And I thank you very sincerely for coming to the talk today. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and let's chat audio NFTs. Cool. Any questions? I'll also be here for the rest of the day, but anybody want to talk about music rights, the structure of audio NFTs, or even just gaming? Anything gaming related?
So there have been some cases recently where an artist has put more or less like a cease and desist out for political, usually, like someone doesn't align with their views. So if an artist didn't like a game that their song was put in, how would you deal with that?
That's a fantastic question. The question is, how do you ensure that you're getting the artist content into games that they like, they enjoy, they're aligned with, and are against political views? I think that, for us, predominantly comes in with the maturity rating of games. You can have really big, popular first-person shooters that can simulate real-world violence, and there are artists who are into that, and there are artists who are not into that. We handle that way upstream. Actually at the label level. So every single time that we have a new game in, we go through a submission process with all of our label and our publishing partners and ensure that they're comfortable with the nature of the game, and we split out any artists who don't want to be in simulated violence or things like this. So we do that with every single game. We do it on the front end. Good question. Oh, that's a very good question. How do we work with independent artists? We're moving pretty aggressively into this, actually. Even at an independent level, artists will still align themselves, often on the music side, to some form of label, called an independent label. And the independent label is there to offer a lot of things, right? Guarantees, venue connections, radio connections, the things of this nature, partnerships with technology companies. But the independent labels have figured out very smartly that if they align with one another, they get a lot more power, right? It's like a union. There's a lot more collective bargaining they have there. So we've just finished a deal with Merlin, who's the largest independent macro label that sits over about 20,000 independent labels. So we actually work with them in a very similar way that we work with the major labels. We go, we find the content, we pull it out. If we want to do specific artist activations, we can. If we want to do a specific NFT drops around it, we can. But we just ensure that we're working and pulling in their content like anybody else, and we're working directly with that label and that artist.
For the audio NFTs, those assets, can they live on ecosystems like the major DSPs? And those rights? Or
Yes, really good question. Can audio NFTs live on major DSPs? Yes, they can, technically. There's nothing really legally stopping that from happening. We're in talks with a big DSP right now to provide, to enable some sort of partnership that would allow us to have that transaction on the DSP itself, but also do really interesting things around DAOs, right? Like people can vote for the type of audio NFTs they want. They can vote for the programming of a station that will make its way into the game. So some really exciting use cases. From a legal perspective, no issues. It's really more partnership and piping. The royalty side is interesting. The flow through would land up being very similar to the label, publisher, and artist. The partnership specifically with the DSP would dictate, I imagine, what the minima sale is of that NFT. But actually it should work pretty similar to just an audio NFT that would live inside of a game or other parts of the metaverse.
For your audio NFTs, do you have a media player, like for the future when you start having more and more music NFTs somewhere where a user can go to play all of their NFTs that they purchase, and would you consider this platform something comparable to a Gala and what they're doing with their music nodes and their movie nodes and things of that?
A really good question. So would, and it sounds like it's broken into a couple of parts. One, do we have an audio player that facilitates the listening experience? And then two, how would we compare in the market with other players, like Gala being one of them? Right now, we are not using our own player. And the reason is because we're interfacing with gaming companies. We're a B2B. We socket into them, we provide music, we provide audio NFTs, and they can enable it in their marketplaces in any which way they desire. But because of that, all manner of games tend to be very fractured, right? There are big engines that dominate this space. Unity and Unreal, I think, probably get you 80% of the market these days, perhaps even more. But there are still proprietary engines. Metaverse infrastructure, meaning like the Roblox of the world, tend to have a very unique server configuration where they sit on their own servers where their assets are stored. So we use their player. It's so heavily integrated, and also we do this for a very particular reason, because of the physics. So if you're in that racing example and you pass the finish line and your Post Malone snippet plays, right, or a snippet of whomever artist it is, you want it to play with the physics of the game. If somebody's nearby, it should be louder. If they're far away, it should be faint, because the whole idea is that it be immersive. So we actually piggyback off of the player that exists in that environment for a very specific reason. In terms of how we compare, it's very different. I think a lot of the companies I'm seeing out today are breaking out roots and stems, and there's a very interesting value to that. There's a lot of value to that. We had to create and invent a class of licensing to create emotes, which are the stings, which are the structure for the audio NFTs. So what we're doing is a little bit different, and it's focused around that very particular type of utility. Oh, one more question. Oh, no, go for it. Good question. So it is, how do we partner with labels and publishers as it relates to exclusivity, and then who would competitors be inside of the landscape? To tackle the first part, we have very deep partnerships with our label and our publishing partners, to a degree where many of them on the major sides are equity holders. They're owners of our company, right? And I think the way it's structured right now is that it's just meant to be mutually beneficial. There are parts of the business that they already handle with gaming today in metaverse environments. Typically that falls around sync licensing. So if you want to have something in a trailer, things like this, right? For us, we're very different. Nothing we do is a sync, the way it's structured. So we have the ability to just get scale and volume out into these metaverse environments. That's a benefit to them, that's a benefit to us. In terms of competitors in the space, I think a lot of it is simply the game's internal composers, right? A lot of really big games will have their own sound studios, and they'll create their own audio offerings. Some of that is deliberate, some of that is because it's just really notoriously been difficult to get some of this music in. So I think there's a place for all of it. The sync component's always gonna be needed, because you're always gonna want that banging song inside of the game trailer, right? You're always gonna want that same great experience inside of the cutscene. But if you wanna have music that's living and breathing and a part of the experience that's curated, you wanna have these cool drops with artists and with DJs, that needs to be server side, that needs to be a living thing, and that's the space we fulfill. There is avenues also as well for direct music licenses. The only thing I'll warn is it's a very long time horizon. So if that is something you're pursuing for your individual projects, allocate somewhere between 3 and 4 quarters. It just takes a long time. It's a function of time as opposed to anything else. And that's it. I think I gotta go, but thank you so much, and answer any questions as well outside.